Your grandfather probably retired at 65 with a pension, a paid-off house, and enough savings to spend his last decades fishing, traveling, or just resting. That world is gone, and almost nobody told you. Somewhere between his generation and yours, the entire foundation of retirement quietly collapsed. No press conference, no warning label, just a slow, silent rewrite of the rules. And millions of people are about to discover, too late, that the deal they thought they were signing up for doesn't exist anymore. If you're entering the workforce today, there's something you need to understand before you spend the next 40 years following a plan that was built for a country that no longer exists. Retirement used to be simple. You picked a company, worked 30 years, and they handed you a pension, guaranteed monthly income for the rest of your life. The math was straightforward. The promise was real. Your employer carried the risk, hired actuaries, invested the money, and made sure you got paid. All you had to do was show up. That system built the American middle class. It made home ownership possible, college affordable, and retirement something every working person could realistically expect. For decades, it just worked. But then, somewhere in the late 1980s, the people running those companies started asking a different question. What if we didn't have to pay for any of this anymore? Enter the 401k. It was originally designed as a small tax loophole for executives, a side perk, not a replacement for anything. But corporations saw an opportunity. Instead of guaranteeing your retirement, they could just hand you an account, drop in a little money, and walk away. The risk shifted from them to you. If the market crashed, that was your problem. If you didn't save enough, that was your problem. If you outlived your money, also your problem. They called it freedom. They called it personal responsibility. What it really was a transfer of risk from the people who could absorb it to the people who couldn't. And almost nobody noticed it happening. Today, fewer than 15% of private sector workers have access to a traditional pension. The rest are on their own, expected to navigate markets, fees, tax codes, and a 40-year investing horizon with no training and no safety net. And here's the part nobody likes to admit. Most people aren't bad with money. They're just being asked to do something nearly impossible. Save aggressively while wages stagnate. Invest wisely while markets swing. Predict healthcare costs decades into the future. Outsmart inflation. Time the economy. The old system asked you to show up. The new system asks you to become a part-time financial analyst on top of your actual job. But the disappearing pension was just the first crack. The next shift was even bigger, and it's still accelerating right now. Companies discovered something even cheaper than a 401k, not hiring employees at all. Why pay benefits, health insurance, retirement contributions, and payroll taxes when you can just hire a contractor? Same work, half the cost, zero long-term obligation. Gig workers, freelancers, independent contractors, 1099s, whatever the label, the result is the same. Millions of people doing full-time work with none of the protections full-time work used to come with. And for an entire generation entering the workforce, this isn't a side hustle. It's the only option being offered. Here's what nobody tells you about contract work. No employer match, no paid sick days, no unemployment insurance when the work dries up, no HR department, no retirement plan. You're not just trading a salary, you're trading the entire scaffolding of a stable adult life. And the kicker? You're often doing the exact same job as the person sitting next to you who's classified as an employee. Same hours, same output, different future. By the time most contractors realize what they've given up, they've already lost a decade of retirement contributions, employer matches, and compounding growth. That gap doesn't close. It compounds in the wrong direction. Now layer on the cost of living. Since 1985, housing prices have more than tripled. Healthcare costs have gone up over 600%. College tuition is up over 1,300%. Meanwhile, real wages, what your paycheck actually buys, have barely moved. Think about that. The average worker today produces more, works more, and earns more on paper than ever before. and still can't afford the same life their parents had on a single income. This isn't a personal failure, it's a structural one. You can do everything right, budget, save, invest, and still feel like you're falling behind. Because you are. The math literally doesn't work anymore. Take housing. In 1985, a median home cost about 3 times the average yearly income. Today, in many cities, it's 7, 8, even 10 times. The down payment alone now requires the kind of savings previous generations didn't need until retirement. And rent isn't a relief, it's an extraction. Every month you pay it, you're not building equity, not building credit toward ownership, and not closing the gap. You're just keeping pace. Meanwhile, the very houses you can't afford are being bought up by investment firms and turned into rental income streams. The ladder isn't broken, it's been pulled up, and anyone still trying to climb it is paying rent to the people who took it. Healthcare is its own quiet disaster. One serious illness, one accident, one diagnosis can erase a lifetime of savings. Even with insurance, deductibles, copays, and surprise bills can run into the tens of thousands. Medical debt is now the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in America. Think about what that means for retirement. You can save diligently for 30 years, and a single hospital stay in your 60s can wipe it all out. That's not a retirement plan. That's a coin flip. And it's a coin flip you didn't agree to play, with stakes you didn't choose, in a system you can't opt out of. And then there's the middle class, or what's left of it. For most of the 20th century, middle class meant something concrete: a home, a car, vacations, savings, a kid's college fund, retirement. Today, those things have been unbundled and sold back to you piece by piece, each one more expensive than the last. People earning 6 figures in expensive cities are living paycheck to paycheck. Families with 2 working parents are still struggling. The income that defined middle-class life 40 years ago wouldn't even qualify as stable today. The label still exists. The reality doesn't. And the people clinging to it hardest are often the ones falling out of it fastest. Every unexpected bill becomes a setback that compounds. Car breaks down, there goes the emergency fund. Rent goes up, there goes the 401k contribution. Medical bill arrives, there goes the down payment. Each event by itself feels survivable, but stacked together over decades, they form a pattern. You never quite get ahead. You spend your 20s paying off student loans, your 30s trying to afford a house, your 40s raising kids, your 50s helping aging parents. And suddenly, you're 60, looking at a retirement account that should have 40 years of compounding behind it, but only has 15. And 15 years of savings at today's costs isn't retirement. It's barely a pause. Social Security was supposed to be the backstop, the floor beneath everyone, no matter what. But the trust fund is projected to face shortfalls in the next decade, and benefits could be cut by 20% or more if nothing changes. Even at full strength, Social Security was never designed to be your only retirement. It was meant to supplement pensions and savings. Now, for millions of Americans, it's the only thing standing between them and poverty in old age. The average benefit is around $2,000 a month. In most cities, that doesn't cover rent. The floor everyone was counting on turns out to have its own cracks running through it. So what does retirement actually look like for the generation entering the workforce right now? For many, it won't happen at 65. Surveys already show that nearly a third of workers expect to work into their 70s. Another large group expects to never fully retire at all. Part-time work in old age is becoming the new normal, not as a hobby, but as survival. People in their 70s driving rideshare. People in their 80s stocking shelves. Not because they want purpose, but because they need rent. This is the quiet truth nobody puts on a recruiting brochure. The retirement you were promised may not be coming. Not because you failed, because the system stopped delivering it. Here's the harshest part. The people who followed the old rules the most carefully are often the ones most blindsided. They worked hard, stayed loyal, saved what they could, trusted the institutions, and the institutions changed the deal without telling them. The pension they were promised got frozen. The company that hired them got acquired. The 401k match got cut. The healthcare plan got worse. Each change on its own seemed small. Together, they rewrote the entire contract. And by the time you notice the contract has changed, you've already spent 30 years living under terms that no longer apply. That's not bad luck. That's a system designed to quietly shift risk downward. So what do you do with this? You don't panic. You don't pretend it isn't happening either. You start by seeing the system clearly, not the version your parents grew up with, but the one you actually live in. You assume the safety net is thinner than advertised. You build multiple income streams, not just one job. You save aggressively when you can, even small amounts, because compounding still works. It just has less time to work with. You learn the basics of investing, not because you want to, but because nobody else is going to do it for you. The old deal is gone. The new deal is honesty. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud. The rules changed without warning, but they're not done changing. The next 20 years will reshape work, wages, and retirement again, probably more dramatically than the last 20 did. The people who thrive won't be the ones who followed the old map. They'll be the ones who understood the map was already obsolete and started drawing their own. You're entering a workforce that wasn't built for you. That's the bad news. The good news is, once you see it clearly, you stop being a passenger. You start making decisions based on the world that actually exists, not the one you were promised. That's where it starts. Eyes open, no illusions, and a plan that's yours.